Hey story lovies, welcome to Black My Story Time, where every tale beats with truth, drama, and power. Let's get into it. Episode 5, Marcus Shows Up. A few minutes later, Marcus wrapped up his meeting and was on his way to the upscale boutique, where a scene was unfolding with the two women in his life. Back in the store, Julia stared at the young woman sitting beside her, Melanie. Curvy hips, perky chest. Caramel skin is as smooth as a baby's. Even with a split lip, a bruised cheek, and her clothes stained and disheveled, she still radiated beauty. For a fleeting moment, Julia felt satisfaction at the sight of her handiwork. But then, as her gaze shifted to the mirror, her stomach dropped. Her reflection looked untouched, hair still in place, clothes immaculate, not a single bruise. The color drained from her face. She'd been played. That's why Melanie hadn't fought back. She wanted this. Every smirk, every taunt, it was part of the setup. She'd known Julia would take the bait, and she had, perfectly. What Julia didn't know was that Melanie had been training in martial arts since childhood and could take down targets twice her size. It didn't matter whether Marcus came storming into the store or saw the footage later. The damage was done. The story was already written. His wife had attacked his girlfriend. Marcus would be there any second. If one of the videos hadn't reached him yet, one of his spies certainly had. And when he saw Melanie, the young, fragile thing, standing there battered and bruised beside the woman everyone in town whispered about and considered a bully, he wouldn't hesitate. He'd take Melanie's side. The realization hit like a stone to the chest. She needed to leave. Now. She was panicking. How would she explain this? She grabbed her bag, signaling one of the attendants to escort her through the back door. But just as the young woman stepped forward, the front door swung open with a crash. And there he was, Marcus Cooper, tall, commanding, effortless as ever. But the storm in his eyes said everything. The entire room could feel it. The staff scurried out of his way, murmuring greetings he ignored. He spotted Deborah and locked eyes with her as she approached. "Where are they?" he asked, his voice low and dangerous. She swallowed hard, her throat tight, heart racing. She had never seen Marcus angry, but she'd heard the stories, and she knew one of those two women was about to pay for it. Unable to find her voice, she simply pointed toward the back and led him there. He stood in the doorway, silent and still, his presence filling the room, tall, strong, menacing. Melanie sat calmly, sipping her wine, disheveled yet somehow elegant, exuding an almost regal poise. She hadn't bothered to wipe the blood from her lip or straighten her clothes. Her indifference was deliberate, calculated. Julia, on the other hand, was unraveling. Her once flawless composure had vanished, replaced by trembling hands she pressed tightly into her lap in a futile attempt to stop their shaking. She kept her gaze fixed on the floor, terrified to meet his eyes, those piercing eyes that seemed to strip her bare. The weight of his silence was suffocating. She knew what was coming, and no amount of bracing could shield her from it. The clarity of her mistake hit her all at once. She had gone too far, and now she was going to pay for it. In one swift, shocking motion, Marcus seized Julia by the neck and yanked her to her feet, her shoes slipping off as she dangled, forced to meet his eyes. What she saw there froze her blood, the gaze of a predator cornering its prey. He slammed her against the wall, his hand locked around her throat as she clawed at him, gasping for air. I'm sorry. She choked out between ragged breaths, tears spilling freely down her cheeks. The room went still. No one dared move or even breathe. Melanie shot up from her chair, uncertain at first. For all her scheming, she couldn't stomach the sight of another woman being treated so violently. Instinct overpowered calculation, and before she could stop herself, she hurried toward them. Gently, she placed a hand on his arm. A soft, steadying touch. In an instant, he released his grip. Julia slid down the wall, collapsing onto the floor, her sobs breaking the silence. Melanie kept her hand on his arm, her voice calm. "That's enough," Marcus exhaled slowly, the tension still burning in his jaw. "I'll see you at home," he said coldly to Julia, not sparing her another glance. She knew what that meant. He turned to Melanie, leading her back into the main section of the store. Her heart was doing somersaults, her mind racing, but she couldn't let it show. Not now. Stopping beneath the soft boutique lights, he tilted her chin up, his eyes sweeping over the cut on her lip. "Are you all right, my love?" he asked. His tone softened now. "I'm fine," Melanie replied, still shaken. He studied her for a moment, brushing his thumb gently across her skin. "Come," he murmured, resting his hand at the small of her back, guiding her toward the door. As they stepped out, Melanie couldn't help glancing over her shoulder. Julia sat crumpled on the floor, looking like a wounded animal who had finally lost all hope. Melanie was anxious but kept her composure as she sat in the passenger seat of his Maybach. The air between them was heavy, thick with unspoken tension. She was relieved that he didn't want to talk. He seemed lost in his own world. Out of habit, she reached out and rested a hand on his thigh, though it was the last thing she wanted to do. She saw something in Marcus's eyes she hadn't seen in a long time, something that terrified her. It pulled her back to a place she'd buried deep in her mind years ago. Still, she held herself steady, grateful for the silence that kept her safe. He dropped her off at the hotel lobby, and she was grateful he didn't want to come up to the penthouse. The moment his car disappeared, relief washed over her. She hurried toward the elevators, jabbing the buttoner repeatedly until one finally opened. She was thankful to be alone. It took everything in her not to fall apart right there. The second she entered her room, she tore off her clothes and rushed straight to the bathroom. The water hit her skin, hot and relentless, but it felt like a cleansing, a desperate attempt to wash away everything that had just happened. Then the memories came, flashbacks she'd buried deep. Her knees buckled and she crumpled onto the cold tiles, trembling, her breath coming in short, shaky bursts. But she refused to cry. Not again. She was beginning to realize the truth. She'd placed herself in a dangerous position, and for the first time, she wondered if it was worth it. She wrapped herself in the comfort of the sheets and rested for a moment, her body still trembling from the shock of it all. After a few deep breaths, she reached for her phone and dialed a familiar number. It rang several times before a smooth, caring voice answered. "Melanie, I was just about to call you. I wanted to know how..." The woman stopped mid-sentence when she realized Melanie wasn't responding. "Melanie!" "Hey, Mom!" Melanie sniffled. Instantly, her mother's tone shifted, tight with worry. "Baby, what happened? Talk to me, Melanie." Melanie could hear the concern in her voice and scrambled for an excuse. "Mom, relax. It's nothing serious. I just caught a cold, that's all." Her mother exhaled audibly. "Oh, thank goodness. I thought something happened to you." For a moment, Melanie wanted to tell her everything. The fear, the violence, the regret. She wanted her mother's comfort, her advice, that gentle assurance that everything would be okay. But she couldn't. If her mother knew the truth, she'd force her to come home. And that wasn't an option. I just wanted to call before getting some rest, Melanie said quietly. I've got a headache coming on. All right, sweetie. Get some sleep, and we'll talk tomorrow. Melanie ended the call before her voice could betray her. She tossed the phone onto the side table and pulled the comforter tightly around her, curling into herself like a cocoon, as if the layers of fabric could shield her from everything closing in. It was slowly dawning on her that she had bitten off more than she could chew, in a country she was not familiar with. She had taken it up on herself to solve a mystery she was not a part of, and it was proving in this moment to be too much. With all her take life by the horn attitude, she felt she was in way over her head and completely alone. Thank you for joining me, my story lovies. Remember, every voice matters, and every story has power. If you love good drama and Caribbean stories, don't just watch. Join the family. Hit subscribe. Thanks again for watching. And stay tuned for the next intriguing episode of When the Crown Falls.